Hello and welcome to the New AE Technology tutorial on setting up the Instant ChipWhisperer system. So Instant ChipWhisperer is really just what is known as a virtual machine. So this is a computer that we have pre-configured it actually uses Linux, but you can run it on top of either your Windows or Linux machine. Unfortunately, VMware doesn't work on Mac. There's another option, VirtualBox, that does. VirtualBox's USB support isn't as reliable, so that's the reason. This guide only supports the VMware, which directly works with Linux or Windows for free. VMware sells a version of their software that may work on Mac with this image. I don't know, I haven't tested. But so this is primarily targeting Windows and Linux users right now. So if you go to the chipwhisperer.com website, and on the release page there's this Instant ChipWhisperer, and it says VMware image. So all you do is you click to download this file, and right now it's mirrored on OneDrive for lack of anywhere else, but that may change in the future. Basically you'll just download it, and it's quite a large zip file. It's 1.83 gigabytes, so we'll let that go, and I will come back in a second once that's downloaded. So once it's download complete, you download it somewhere. Right now I actually have it on the desktop, so it's a compressed zipped folder. So what we need to do is we actually need to extract it somewhere, and Windows comes with software to do the extraction, or you can do it on Linux or whatever, and I'm just going to put it somewhere. This will take a little bit of time because it's quite a large file, so it takes a few minutes to do the unzip. In the meantime, I'm going to go back to this page. The other thing we need to install is the VMware Player, which will actually play this image. So go back to the firmware releases, and so the VMware Player is what will let us run this machine. So there's a link here. It says if this will require VMware Player, which you can download for free. So you have to go to their download, and either Windows 64 or Linux 64-bit. And what you might notice is that both of these are 64-bit. So if by chance your OS is not 64-bit, so this example I'm running on is actually only a 32-bit OS, we can't use VMware Player 7, but that is not an issue at all. What we need is an older version of VMware. So I'm going to look at VMware Player 6, and that supports 32 and 64-bit. So it does not matter, either 6 or 7. I don't know if 12 apparently exists, but I'd recommend sticking with 7. As a note, there's a VMware Player Pro that they'll try to get you to pay for. You don't need that. All you need is this free edition here. So there we go. So it downloads it. I don't even think you need to register. So once that's downloaded, we can install the appropriate version of VMware Player. So again, if you have a 64-bit OS, you just use 7. If not, you can install 6. So let's see how things are doing. So it's almost done the extraction. So there we go. So you might want to move this. Right now it's on the desktop. You'll want to put it sort of in what your final location is going to be. I'm just going to leave it here on the desktop for this demo, but if you have your own folder or something like that, you might as well put it there. So once this is finished, we'll be able to run the VMware Player installer, let Windows do its magic stuff. There we go. So we can close the web browser, and this again will take a minute. You can sign your life away, blah blah blah. Install. We don't care about product updates in this case because it's such an old version. I think this is basically the latest. Just uncheck that, and whatever. Share desktop. continue. So this takes a second. As part of this, it installs a network driver, which will interrupt your internet connection for a second. So just be aware of that. So if you're downloading that huge VMware image, when you install this, it might actually cause your network connection to blip out for a second, which will kill the download. So either finish the download first or wait for it to or install this first and then do the download, whichever one. And then it's done, so that is good. Alright, so I can delete this zip file. It's a huge file, so free up a bit of space, and we can run VMware Player at this point. So all we have to do now is open an existing virtual machine, and I'm going to point it to this folder I downloaded. It has the virtual machine set up in there, so it'll add it to your favorite list. And now all we have to do, if you hit the play virtual machine, it will power it on. And it can give you some warnings, so you can just turn them off. Oops. So in this case, it says I don't have enough memory. You may have to adjust settings depending on what you're running it in. So I just have to crank down the amount of memory used by the virtual machine. So the first one, the one question it will ask is that the VM has been moved or copied. So say you moved it because or you copied it, I guess, from my virtual machine, basically. So this means it's going to change around settings to match your machine. If you move it again, you'll get that error. So if you move it to another location on your hard drive, you can then say, hey, I moved this somewhere else. And once that's running, it's finally going to go through a boot system. So you don't need this. It says the following software is available for download, the VMware tools for Linux. I believe it's already installed in the machine, but you may need to install it in the host. So you can just allow it to do the download. So this VMware tools is actually really nice, because what it's going to do is it'll let you do stuff like copy and paste between the virtual machine and your host computer, or drag and drop files between the virtual machine and your, what they call the host. So this is your main computer. So if you have, files you want to use as part of ChipWhisperer, you can just copy them over really easily. And so we'll just let that finish, and then the VMware boot in the background. This is going to appear to be running very slowly because I'm actually running this example VMware in another VM, which, as it warned me at the beginning, causes the player to not work as well as it could. So we'll just pause for a second while it boots. And then it eventually should say the updates are finished, so we can close that off. And now the VM should continue to boot. And it may tell you that some files are missing, so that was files I had configured originally, so we don't care about that. So there you go. So what you have now is, this is actually a, I'll maximize that, and you'll notice if I maximize the window, it makes this window larger. So this is actually a little Linux computer running, and it's all pre-configured with all of the ChipWhisperer software. Now, the very first thing we'll need to do is update our ChipWhisperer version. And this is critical because the ChipWhisperer, basically, the VM is just pre-configured with everything, but it might not have the latest release of ChipWhisperer. And you can actually do the command git pull. And what this will do is this will give you the absolute latest bleeding edge ChipWhisperer modules. So this is giving you sort of the current development version of the tools. You may not want to have that recent. You can do other commands that will be documented to get release versions. but generally what's in the Git head like that should be okay. So you can see I just did the Git pull and it updated a whole bunch of stuff. So that's all new files that weren't there previously. And we can run, for example, if we want to run the capture program, we can just double click on it there. Now the other thing we need to do is we want to connect hardware through. So how does that work? Up at the top in the player here, there's basically some options for connecting hardware through. And you can see there's this removable devices, and what will come here is you'll get USB devices here. So what I'm going to do is actually plug my, so there it's telling me a new device was detected that could be connected. What I'm going to do is plug in the ChipWhisperer Lite, and it's critical to note my mouse is inside the ChipWhisperer or the VMware window right now. When it's inside the window, it's automatically going to try passing it through. So we can take a look. Give it a second to detect. And we can see it has the ChipWhisperer Lite. If it doesn't automatically connect it through, you can just click on this so it says connect, disconnect from host. What you'll notice is I didn't install the drivers, and it tells you this. You can say don't show me again. I never installed the drivers on Windows, so the nice thing here is that it's actually passing it straight through to the VM without ever caring what Windows thought about it. So it's actually connected now. And we can run, for example, if I run the one of these scripts, and the target device isn't necessarily programmed with the correct code, so it's coming up with some other response here, but you can see it connected to the main ChipWhisperer just fine. So if you want to do some of the tutorials, for example, they include stuff like rebuilding the target code. So let me show you how to do that. I open a terminal in the corner here, and we change directory to the ChipWhisperer directory. This is just a copy of the Git repo. Change directory to the software directory, or the hardware directory. Then the victims. Then the firmware. So in the firmware directory, this is all the various example code, which is things you can attack. The default is simple serial AES. So what it should ship with is a full AES. It actually ships with a partial AES implementation in the software, but you can type make, for example, and it will rebuild the file for you, and we could program that right in to the Xmega device. Oops. Always forget it's hardware, victims, firmware, yes. And I'll just erase that. So there you go. So it's programmed the chip. So now I have the AES demo running again. So this is, if you want to follow along with the AES tutorial, this will look very similar, and we can check that the input and output data matches the expected, which is great. We can go along and say capture 50. So if this works, it's doing the capture. I'm going to save it. So it, as before, it defaults to, whatever this directory was. So test example. And then we run the ChipWhisperer analyzer. And we don't need this window anymore. That was what I was building with. And by default, it may open, look, some of the windows you might need to rearrange a bit. So it's always sort of the first time you open the software until everything's set up properly. And all we'll do is we'll do the normal thing. Reopen the project. You can see the waveform, and we could do like a If you notice things are missing, so like there's somewhere normally there's a table of results. Just from the window here, we can see there's a results table that you can add back. So if we do the attack, you can see that it is attacking as regular. So that's very briefly how you use the Instant ChipWhisperer to get up and running, super fast like this. As a note, so with the VM, just some other stuff about that. Again, it's very nice because if I wanted to modify this README file, you can actually just drag stuff right between the your host computer and this VM. So you could then open it here. Of course, there may be some issues like the line endings on Linux are different, so you should open this in the programmer's notepad, not, basic notepad. It should work in WordPad too. It would work, so it tells you here how to do the git pull and everything like that, and if you need to update things. As a note, the VM by default has some special stuff which will screw up FTDI-based USB serial emulators, so there's a note on how to fix that. But if you have questions, you can always ask in the forum, and hopefully this will get you up and running very quickly.